Black Panther Podcast, the second of 4 shows. This event is an effort by BrightSeed Collaborative, whose mission is to create a more diverse, progressive future through art, technology, and culture. I'm Sergio Mims, and I'll be your host again, back by popular demand, or because nobody else wanted to do it, right? In a second of 4 shows discussing the movie phenomenon that is sweeping the country, the Marvel Comics movie Black Panther. First of all, we'd like to thank First Aid Comics for allowing us to host our show here in the upper room of their comic book store, and also thanks to Street Level, who will be filming our show today. Let's start with the introductions. We have, once again, 3 highly successful panelists with knowledge, insight, and opinion. You notice it says 3 out of the 4. That's right. 3 highly successful panelists with knowledge and insight and opinions who can help us better understand the world of the Black Panther. First, I have Ugochi. Good. Sweating bullets here. Chigerian, calls himself Chigerian. Ugochi and the Afro Soul Ensemble could have come at a better time. The world needs a healing force. Her musical interests span all corners of the globe. She fuses her choreo-poetic style of spoken word and her unique singing ability in order to generate a more powerful word sound attraction. Southside native, she is the daughter of Nigerian parents, and she also combines elements of her, of her Afrobeat influence of jazz, house, reggae, and soul aesthetics to create a new sound, one she coined Afro Soul. Her current album, Love Shot, can be purchased right now on iTunes and Spotify. Next to her, I have Khari B, disco poet, who is also known as Disco Poet Khari B. He is a spoken word musician and educator working internationally in the literary arts, with a solid reputation for delivering intense performances with live instrumental accompaniment. His energetic nature is tied to growing up in Chicago's house music scene. And last, we have James Duke with Street Level Youth Media, teaching artist, mentor, filmmaker, and Southside Chicago native. That's it for all, folks. Thanks a lot. Anyway, so let's get to today's show. Last week, we spent a lot of time talking about the origins of Black Panther, why the film is so important, particularly in this day and age. Why has it become such a phenomenon? But the question I want to start off with is, okay, movie comes out, it's a big hit. What happens after that? Is it going to be a real change, or eventually it'll go back to normal? And I bring that up because I can think of other movies and TV shows that were considered phenomenons of their time, who everybody said, this is it, the game has changed, it's different now, and eventually it went back to the usual. So what makes Black Panther, this movie, so different than all the ones that came before?
I don't know if we can say it's different yet. Okay. Unless we can really predict the future. I mean, if you look at the blaxploitation period, Sweet Sweetback came out, and then you got Shaft, and then you got this whole now called genre
believe me, I was
called
there, and I thought the world had changed,
right?
And then it all went away, and then I was like...
But, and I hate to say this on camera, but we're not known to be... We don't plan ahead. Caucasians plan ahead. They 20 years ahead of the game. So when the phenomenon of Sweet Sweetback and Shaft hit, they were ready to co-opt that movement and move it up out the way. Same thing they did with the Cosby Show. Cosby Show came, and then there was 1,000 black shows on television. We thought everything had changed. We saw ourselves on television. It was wonderful. It was beautiful. They got ahead of it and co-opted it and moved it up out the way. And so shortly thereafter, you got Friends and Seinfeld and shows that really had no presence of people of color in them. Great Seinfeld in the case, great show, but we weren't really in that universe. So now we're coming to another phase where we got this, as you say, phenomenon with Black Panther, and we think it's going to spur a whole bunch of other black-oriented, melanated people of color movies and television shows and all of that. We have to plan ahead. And what are we going to do to co-opt the co-option before it happens? because there's going to be some silly coon stuff that happens right right after that's going to take a lot of the air and the energy and the spirit out of what's happening now, because we ready to go right now. We all ready to go. But I think if we don't plan ahead and move our people and our industries and our arts into position to take advantage of all of the spirit and strength and energy that this is really accelerating, it's just gonna be a whole nother kind of blaxploitation period.
I feel like Wakanda is alive in certain places, as far as the mindset of certain people and what some people are trying to put out into the world. But the thing is that it just takes more of a mass awareness. Some of us actually try and buy black, eat black, shop black, have a black mentality, try to put forward black perspectives and thoughts, try to be superheroes in our everyday lives and using our superpowers and our artistry, whatever it is you have, to make those leaps and changes and the shifts in the dimensions. But I just think that more people need to get onto the mindset, and we're not people who think ahead. This Wakanda is late, in the game. It's like this is a state of being that should have been created decades ago, as far as I'm concerned. I feel like this is where we need to be. So we're kind of late, and we need to just shift our perspective so that we can build that every day. And this is what it takes. It takes, not just getting caught up in the emotional sweep of, oh, this is great, it looks great. Oh, let me finally buy that African shirt I was always looking at.
Made in China.
Made in You know what I mean? Or talk to that African family. I always was wondering why they smell like that. It's so exotic with all the spices. Let me ask them, what are you cooking with? Maybe to me, this is what I feel like needs to happen. The next steps is that people need to start, trying to create those worlds that they're seeing in these fantasies, because we have such great imaginations and we have these fantastic fantasy worlds, but then in reality, we're kind of stuck on how to bring that forward, and we just need to use that imagination that we have and put one or two tools a day. I'm going to utilize this to add to my reality and bring Wakanda alive, because I think it lives somewhere in a dimension.
And James, what do you say?
Yeah, well, I always think of the perspective. I work with young people, so I always think about how this is going to impact young people. And I think about, just like to my childhood, there wasn't this type of representation in a fantasy film like ever. You know what I'm saying? Like we had, the traditional hood movies, Boys in the Hood. You know what I'm saying? All the movies that I saw coming up in my childhood were rooted in reality.
Brother from another planet.
Yeah, well, yeah, but still, I had to,
right.
That wasn't on the forefront.
Right.
Those were cult classics.
Yeah.
And I feel like this is the first movie that's going to be like, it's going to make a big impact. It's going to do numbers. It's going to break some records. And that's going to plant a seed in a lot of young people's head that this is possible. I don't have to stick to this particular story. Now, those stories are important. Stories like Moonlight, those need to be told. But it's like, a lot of young people I work with do have a large imagination. So I feel like the ceiling has been lifted. You know what I'm saying? And this is going to open up more possibilities for people to get inspired to tell these stories.
Mm-hmm. But then... one of the questions I brought up last week is, let's look at reality. You have a lot of people who are latecomers who are getting on the bandwagon. And because Black Panther is now the hip, cool thing right now. And everybody wants to be on the hip, cool thing. Okay, once the movie is out, are those people still going to be there? Or is it going to be, Kevin Hart's got a new movie? Or what? Right. Is this movie enough to sustain that? Or is this just, I don't want to say it's a fad, but this is just the hot thing right now.
All right.
And it's been brilliantly marketed, and everybody's aware of it, and everybody is crazy about it. What happens a month later? Are those people, 6 months later, are those people still going to be there? All those people who have now come on the boat, are they still going to be there?
No. But there'll be more than there was before.
Mm-hmm.
A bunch of folks fall off. A bunch of folks stay on.
Mm-hmm.
Think about the Million Man March. It was 1 million of us out there.
Mm-hmm.
But let's say 800,000 kind of faded away. But you still got another 200,000 that continue to put in the work in the years to follow. And that's what's important. It's never going to be everybody.
And then it's documented. You know, it's
Yeah.
actually put in the books. This happened. You know, this was a movement that actually happened, and they can't take that away. I don't know. To answer your question, I feel like I feel like this is late to me, so I'm just happy that it's here. But I like I was saying before, I feel like there are some people in some schools of thought that have been trying to build this fantasy place and put those bricks into the mortar to create that kind of space where, you know, you could have the idea that this Wakanda could be alive. We could build a place for Black people where Black people are in control and there's peace and there's harmony and you know, self-love and respect, you know, fantasy things. And so we can bring those things back to be cool again, just like it was in the 70s. I mean, it's just like a whole different era where people were happy to see another Black person. You were
I know.
giving them 5, and it was like, whoa,
On the black hand side.
Yeah, the good old days. Yeah.
the good old days. And now it's that fantasy. That's a fantasy. So I feel like, you know, we have to do the work to make that happen, but it's going to be by example. It's not just going to be a film alone. I think that would do it.
Yeah. I think people are going to be thirsty for it. As far as putting a time frame on it, like I don't know when the next big thing will be. And like I said, just thinking of like young people, like they're going to take time to develop their craft and actually put something, you know, that kind of meets that bar. For like this film is going to raise the bar in terms of like production. So I mean, we'll get something after, but one of the main things I think that's important is that we also look into like people who are doing it independently. Like it's on a big scale, so it's kind of easy to check out. But you know, if people are latecomers and they see this, go seek out. There's some local people in your community. Your neighbor might be writing a dope comic or something like that, or anything. And these are people that you see every day, but you don't take the time to invest in what they're doing. And it might be, you know, you might like it as much as what you're paying $10 or whatever to go see in a theater. So I think, you know, from this we have to look into like, you know, who's doing it on a smaller scale as well to sort of keep that thing going.
Well, you know, there are several Afrofuturist projects still being developed for films and particularly for cable television. I can't remember which book now, but I do know that one of Octavia Spencer's novels is being adapted as a series.
Octavia Butler?
Butler? Yeah.
What did I say?
Spencer.
I always do that. I always do that. I mean Octavia Butler. I'm sorry. My apologies.
Right, it is one being. I forget which one as well. Yeah.
And then you have A Wrinkle in Time, which is coming out like 3 weeks later. Ava DuVernay's picture, which looks promising until Oprah shows up. And then, oh no.
Damn.
Oh no.
Hey,
No, keep it in.
hey, Oprah,
Keep it in.
Damn.
me.
Right.
What the hell? She's not running for president, so what do I get?
Call me, O. Call me.
Right. Okay, edit it out. But it seems to be right now there is a movement towards this. Once again, it depends on is this a fad or will it last? Another thing which I brought up, which last week, which I want to hear your take on, is the fact that are we building this movie up too much? Okay, I'll give you an example. When Miracle St. Anna, Spike Lee's film, was coming out, I couldn't wait to see that picture. I thought it was going to be the film of the decade because my father's a World War II veteran. I said, there's never really been a movie. I can name one obscure one. Two obscure ones about black soldiers in World War II. And I said, I can't wait to see this picture. Finally. And I started hearing rumors like, uh-oh. And I saw the picture and I was crushed. In the first 30 seconds, he blew it. First 30 seconds. And then I had to sit and watch the rest of the 160 minutes of that picture. And I said, that's my lesson for building up something so big that I don't think any movie could have matched, right? Maybe if I looked at it today, I would maybe like it better in a different light. But at the time, I build it up in my head so much. And I've talked to people who are, dying for this movie, and they think this is it. This is going to be the revolution. And wait a minute, hold it.
Ooh.
Yes, son. Go ahead.
Ooh. It
Okay.
don't matter.
Yes.
This can be Meteor Man, right? It can
Oh,
literally,
no, wait. We'll
it
get
can
into that
literally
later.
be Meteor Man. However,
That film gets a bum rap.
one of the rules, the protocol is, no matter how horrible it is, we act like it's the greatest movie that has ever produced,
Schindler's List.
ever.
Every
Right. Yes. Yes. No, that.
Every black film. Be
Like,
careful.
people
yeah.
are gonna have to act. Across the board. Maintain your calm. We only talk about this in private when nobody else is around.
Okay.
Right. We party line is this is the greatest black movie of all time, sight unseen. It is Schindler's List. Don't ever say anything bad about it, or you are completely excommunicated and will be beat with a bag of nickels. Like that's the rules. No.
Traded by the black delegation.
It's great. We are in there cheering the whole time. I don't care what happens. Period.
You down with him?
Well, I mean, this movie, with the comic book, I was always hoping this movie would be a movie eventually. And so this is something that's a big deal for me, just as a person that's seeing something that they always wanted to see come to fruition. So I hope that it's as good as I think it should be. I hope that it's as good as I expect it to be. And so that's the hope I'm taking into. I'm not going to expect to be deflated in that hope. But either way, I'm going to be like, Wakanda!
Yeah. But keep in mind, still is a Marvel movie.
Sure.
It's not Battle of Algiers.
Sure.
It's not Bush Mama. It's not a film by Halle Jarima. This is still a Marvel movie. It's going to follow all the same tropes.
And they have a
As all the
horrible
previous-
reputation of ruining
And so
characters.
like that,
But
As the movies, right? As I said before, I would have loved it. We haven't seen the movie. I've read the script. But I would think it'd be fantastic if the movie dealt with this evil plan by these white supremacists to kill all the black people in the world,
That would be
and
great.
Black Panther comes in to save the black race. That's not going to be the movie.
That'll be reality. This is the fantasy.
right, we just got to get somebody in a
That's
suit.
what's really
Uh-huh.
So they, I don't know. I feel like that would now. If that was the case,
You
listen, I'd
see?
be out here doing cartwheels all the
Yeah.
way to the.
It's still going to be a Marvel movie. He's going to fight some generic Marvel villain. It's going to follow the same tropes. Okay, it's got a whole lot of black people in it. But it's still going to follow the same tropes.
But that's the independent film that we need to make. Is the one you just described. I would love to see a film like that where we find out
It was a
that
film like that made in 1974.
maybe there. Which film are you talking about?
Three the Hard Way.
Oh, okay.
A white supremacist group has a plan to kill all the black people in the United States.
And they poison the water
And they
in
poison the
Flint.
water supply.
In
like
Flint.
Michigan.
Right.
No, not
And-
like Flint. It was in Flint.
What's going on right now?
And then three black guys saved the black race.
How did that film do?
It was a box office hit. It was a smash.
But see what I said about them looking ahead? 50 years later, they
50
actually
years,
poisoned the
yeah.
water
Yeah,
in
yeah.
Flint.
That was
And,
really-
and there
I
was
think they
no
got the idea from the movie.
there was no three hards.
Right.
So I don't know. I think everyone has their own expectations of this movie, right? And it's not gonna meet what everyone wants it to be. But this is a rare case. This movie is like capturing lightning in a bottle. Like you're only gonna get one chance to do it. And I think about I don't know what everybody else felt about the Tupac movie, right? That was
You actually
one.
saw it?
I did.
Okay.
And on paper, it seems like that movie would be like it should have been better than the NWA movie. You know what I'm saying, to be honest. But it just didn't. Something about it was just missing something. And it's like I don't know if we'll get a chance to do another Pac movie where it's like it has that big thing behind it. And I feel the same thing about this. Will it be good? I don't doubt that it'll be good. I feel like it will fall short of some people's expectations because that's just how it goes.
Yeah.
But I mean, I agree.
Party line.
Yeah, on front, you walk out with your fist up. But if you got to talk about it and dissect it, we're gonna do it amongst ourselves. But we're gonna save face. But I got a feeling it's
I
gonna
really
be
think
good.
that the independent filmmakers. I mean, I know this is something that you couldn't do independently. It's such a major motion picture, but for us to do more independent films where we can actually deal with different type of storylines that could actually be more specific to us and not, somebody like a Stan Lee or somebody determining the storyline. But I think this is a call for all of us to just step up in whatever it is that we're doing on behalf of the vision that I think this film is inspiring in all of us. You know what I mean? That's standing up to your calling, being that hero. You see the young boy in the commercial who's he's the Black Panther, and you're like, yes, that, especially after all of that monkey propaganda T-shirt talk with H&M. It's like just as far as a promotional idea, it's a great way to sell a positive image of Black people and Black youth. And so just how can we take that vision forward, each and every one of us, is what I think we need to have some next steps to keep Wakanda alive. You know what I mean? If you really want to know how this is going to impact people, maybe people need to be kind of, shown what they can keep doing to keep this idea moving forward, and not just let it drop and say, oh, that was a good feel-good movie. Okay, now I think I'm ready to go see somebody else that doesn't impact them.
I got a question for you guys. So, Ugochi, so you're a Nigerian?
Nigerian, just because I was born here, but
Yes.
I'm the first generation born
Okay,
here.
well, so I got a question for you. So, if Wakanda was to exist, would it happen sooner in the United States, or would it happen on the continent?
It's funny. I talked to my cousins and family members in Nigeria, and it's just, I feel like all eyes are looking at us.
Yes.
To set it off and to see what is it, brother? What do you need us to do? We're waiting on you. And so I feel like, because we're not that internationally connected to what's happening in other countries, but it seems like all of the Black people of the other countries are looking at us. So I feel like that's a hard question for me to even answer, because
the thing
such a
about,
symbiotic
right
relationship.
now they have some technology over there that's really, they got they're doing this thing called the iHub. They got tech incubators. They're not playing, and Google and everybody's over there. So sometimes I think that it might happen there first before it happens here.
Maybe we could be strategic and be simultaneous and just let us just blow up on everywhere, at the same time. That would be amazing if we could.
If we start talking across the lines,
we get on that level,
Yeah.
and make it something.
And that's what
strategic.
things like this should facilitate. Is our people talking across the lines. We should be communicating with our brothers and sisters in South America, in all over Africa. Like you said, it is some wonderful technology advances happening in Africa right now, but they're still being pillaged and plundered. So we have to talk across the line in order to facilitate and understand and comfortability with one another, so that the stuff can happen
Our saying is
simultaneously.
BrightSeed is narratives of the future. So meaning we create the future through stories. So like with this movie, we're creating the future. They're creating a future, but we have the opportunity ourselves to be very specific.
Sure.
Because we think about Star Trek, we think about all these futuristic things. We've got the cell phones now. We have all that technology. We just start the conversation. So that's my question. Is I don't really know how this movie's gonna go. It looks great, but at the same time, there's possibility in just looking at it and saying, well, let's do that thing.
Which brings me, have you talked to your relatives about the movie?
I talked to them.
I mean, what's their
take on it?
Yeah, what's their anticipation?
Well, I haven't really talked to them about the Black Panther movie as far as Wakanda in this fictional place, because they're not really, the ones I've talked to don't really know much about the background of Wakanda, but so I don't really talk to them more about that. I just talk to them more about Nigeria and how we can make Nigeria into a Wakanda. So I haven't really talked to them about this idea of this movie Black Panther, but I talked to them about how could we make Nigeria more like Wakanda, kill out the corruption, kill out all the other aspects, and help us to be more strong to each other. So I haven't really talked to them about the concept specifically this is what a Wakanda vision of what that environment is like, but I talked to them about it in kind of an abstract way.
Because I keep telling people one of the things about the picture, which I think excites so many people, is that you've never seen on film before this vision of Africa. Anytime a movie set in Africa is always poverty and child soldiers and famine and chaos, and usually there's some white guy who helps the black guy, and this is just this technologically advanced country that, according to Brian, has never been
But that's the challenge.
colonized.
That's the
Right.
challenge about the movie, that Wakanda is what we would be without European colonization. We can't,
Fantasy.
with our conditioned minds and colonized intellects. It's hard for us to even fathom what would we be without colonization, and it's this ultra advanced civilization that closed themselves off from pink people and were able to develop without that interruption. I think it was it John Henrik Clarke said slavery interrupted black evolution. Like, yeah. And so we in Wakanda, we were able to evolve on the path we were already on. And so you get this powerful, very wealthy African nation that just didn't have to deal with pink people. We've had in this reality, we've had to deal with them. And even if we were able to get them all the way up out of our environment, so to speak, we still got these conditioned minds that look at things from a very Eurocentric standpoint. Yeah.
That's the part of it. When I'm talking to my family, it's like, okay, so you're already in a country that is very rich to have all the resources. I mean, especially in our area, there's oil everywhere in the south, Nigeria. But it's like, okay, so you're in this environment, but you still have white colonialism and corruption that is basically keeping you enslaved. So how can we deal with this as an African nation where we can get rid of our enemies and get rid of that device, even though we were liberated and independent from Britain, they're still in control. And then when they're not physically there, what do? The mentality affects the next one. So then the tribalism idea of, okay, I'm better than you because they said so, and they're giving me guns to say I'm better than you, and now I'm going to kill you, my brother. This is the mentality and a part of the sickness and virus of white colonialism. So I'm just trying to show what are some ways that we could actually take all of these ideas down, with the bringing in of a black monarchy or a black imperialistic state but it all has it has the idea to protect the people. And so I'm just trying to give them another concept, because sometimes we get used to seeing white people in control and feeling they should be in control. You know what I mean? From just them being in control so long, and then God is white, apparently, according to Jesus, who is everywhere, and he's white. Looking like Kenny Loggins. So this is part of the issue.
I got a question, but I'm going to save it for the break because I want to follow up on that idea. But let me ask you this: you're not saying that. Just to make clear, you're not saying that Black Panther is going to be the catalyst for all that.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that the idea, though, is something where we can start. For people who can't see even anything of what this picture is trying to put out there, then at least they can start here with this reality that in some type of fantasy place, this is happening. So maybe an alternate reality here somewhere that could happen, where, we could be there's going to be one force fighting for black people and people who look brown and who are representing Africa. And that we could all be in one accord, that we could all be living harmoniously. That maybe this could happen because I saw it here. As the doorway to create whatever else your imagination can come.
It's the power of images. The power of imagery has been used against us for so long, all the time, pretty much 24/7. And now that same power, which is a neutral power, we get to see a perspective of what we can be, and that's what it does. So I'm not gonna put on the Black Panther suit and go around fighting crime, but I may. I might, but I may get my physics skills on because he's this brilliant physicist, Or I may look further into the power of using your ancestry in your present day, because he's connected to all of the Panther gods and all of everyone who's been a Black Panther before him. It gives us tools. Yeah. It's a toolbox. And that's why we're gonna walk out of there like this is the greatest movie of all time.
Which reminds me, I'll bring this up after the break. We're gonna take a break, but the question I gotta ask you, which leads to a question to you, which leads to just what you were saying. We'll be back after a break with the Black Panther Podcast. I'm trying not to laugh. So, welcome again to part 2 of our second Black Panther Podcast. This is an effort by BrightSeed Collaborative in partnership with Street Level and First Aid Comics. And I want to thank First Aid for hosting us, and also to remind you that you can purchase special Black Panther movie ticket packages for the evening premiere showing on February 15th at 9 p.m. at the Harper Theater.
They're
Sold out.
Can't
Sorry,
get
folks.
them.
Well, there you go. You should have brought them last week when I talked about it. And our guest, Ugochi, international performance artist, Khari B, disco poet, and James Duke with Street Level Youth Media. So I want to start off where we ended, and I wanted to go to you because let's talk about reality versus fantasy. Of course, the movie is set in Wakanda, which is a fictionalized African country. There will be some, how should I phrase this? It's set in Africa, so there will be what you will call African symbolism and traditions and legends and stories. But once again, this is a Hollywood movie. It's going to be fictionalized. Some stuff, no doubtly, will be made up. So are you going to be a stickler in terms of, well, that's not how it's done in Nigeria, or that's not how it's done in Senegal?
Well, let's just be clear. Wakanda is Nigeria, okay? We're just going to...
Oh, okay.
Claim it
All
for the
right.
Nigerians. Claim it.
All
It's
right.
like the Jollof Wars, okay?
All right.
Ghana's coming for y'all. Ghana's coming.
All right.
No, I'm actually just really suspending my disbelief and just trying to see what they're presenting. I'm not gonna force my reality onto this fantasy fiction film. I'm just going to take it all in and see what they're presenting, and then I'll decide what hits and what sticks and what doesn't. You know, but for me right now, I'm not gonna go in saying, "Oh, that's not Africa," because it's fictional. I don't know if this place that they're creating is not my country. It's a fictional country in Africa. So I'm gonna keep that in mind. Now, if they're gonna have white people walking around with a black face, and I'm not gonna go for that. You know, certain things I won't be going for, even if it is fiction. But for the most part, I'm not gonna force my reality or my understanding onto what they're trying to do. I'm gonna see what picture they're crafting first, and then I will decide if this is some BS or if this is
Because of course, as
culturally relevant.
he referenced in the first part, you know, we are sensitive to it's all about image, and we are very sensitive about our image. And this is like a poor analogy maybe, but I think of that show that's on now on Showtime, The Chi, which is supposed to be set on the south side of Chicago. And I look at that show and I go like, I don't know what they're talking about, but I don't see any kind of south side I know. They may make a reference to Obama Library. First of all, it's not even shot anywhere near the south side. You can recognize it immediately. People don't dress like that. Kids don't dress like that. Kids don't talk like that. And okay, that's fine for people outside of Chicago. They may think they're seeing what the south side of Chicago is really like, but it's total fiction.
All right.
And I'm sensitive to that.
Yeah, and I think that encourages dialogue. Like I think people have a perception of what Africa is, and I think this is just gonna, allow people to have that conversation and talk about some of those things. The same with the Chi. I talk to people about that all the time. Like, there's location inaccuracies in a lot of movies that are based in Chicago. A lot of I saw Chicago PD, and they were talking about they're on Halsted, and I'm like, that's not Halsted. That's like some suburb or something. So it's like you can always, pick those things out when you're just like, rooted into it. But I think it's just good to have some type of representation on the big screen, and it's going to allow people to ask questions. You know what I'm saying? And that's going to lead to more clarity.
Or maybe a flight to Africa.
To
see what that's about. Who knows?
But talking about representation, going back to what you were talking about at the very beginning, you do know that they're getting ready to do a remake of Superfly.
Interesting.
And I don't know anyone who wants to say why. At this day and age, why? The original film, which came out in 1972, is not a great film, but it was a very important movie for its time, of a very important genre of its time, right? It was seminal, but that day is past, long past. So why bring it back now?
Don't tell
again?
The
Right, because it's not past. That's and this is what I'm talking about, and why I have to give props to Pink people, because they've already planned this 20, 30 years ahead. Mm-hmm. So with the original Superfly.
By the way, can I say pink people? I just love that.
The Superfly was the antithesis of Shaft. He wasn't a black superhero. He wasn't down for the community. No. He was a pimp. He had permed hair. Well, he was going around smacking bitches and pimping hoes. You confused with the Mac. Yeah. Right.
Superfly was a drug dealer.
Yeah. He was, and Superfly was the drug. It wasn't the actual guy. It was the drug. So they're already ready. They're already ready to take away the nationality, the national love and Afrocentric appreciation that's going to happen in Black Panther, and give you a pimp. Same way as they did with NWA. At that time, Public Enemy was where we were looking, and they brought on these Jerry Curl West Coast gangbangers to take all the attention away from these very, very positive and uplifting men that had our attention at the time. So why not? And this is the age of remake. So why not take this pimp who knocked down, or this drug dealer who knocked down all of the wonderfulness that Shaft brought into our imagery, and use them again? Because as soon as it comes out, watch all the pimp references and pimp appreciation happen as fast as, or drug dealer appreciation happen as fast as it can happen, because those images are powerful. But there are still, like you were saying earlier, and you and I were just mentioning earlier, there's still going to be more people that stick to the inspiration that this Panther movie is going to give us than it was before. And that's what's important, because those are the people that's going to make it come alive, like you keep referencing. We have to build these images so that we know how to build or what to build to. He's going to, or this movie is going to inspire us. Again, he's a physicist. He's, he's a great martial artist. He's one of the most brilliant. He's fine. He's one of the most brilliant. He's one of the most brilliant minds on the planet. He's connected to his ancestors. That is going to resonate with our children. It's going to resonate with a lot of us who have never even thought about that stuff.
And even the cultural trickle down.
Yeah.
What you learn about him culturally, and his culture, just from watching him and his family dynamic, and his legacy that he's being passed down from his father. It's a lot of African culture that is going to fall down. Like, I'm waiting to see what Marvel actually does do and say. But according to the comic, they make it like the comic. I think that there will be a lot that people can glean. All type of generations and races can glean from that.
It's going to be a bunch of young women that get into their self-defense based on the Dora Milaje. There are gonna be some bad sisters walking around in about 5 years because they behinds are going into training the day after the movie. Like, I want to be bad like the sister.
Like, not Wonder Woman and Princess Diana, but
Right.
this is somebody that looks like me, you know, and
That
so
would-
it's just resonating. But I feel like it's our job, those of us who feel like, you know, we have a vision too, to give these young people points to focus on, so that they don't just leave the movie and it just, you know, goes to the back of their brain and they don't think about it again. Maybe there's some different points that we can put forward so that they can always be thinking about themselves in a positive way and trying to, you know, push those images forward. I think that's the job and what we can do to keep it alive. Because it's just, other than that, I think it'll just be a moment that may wave for some and linger, and for others it'll just come and go, and it's like the next movie is coming in. But if you really focus and put that energy into really building it, and what could it look like if you really were going to build it, how would you make it happen? And what powers do you have? What superpowers do you have within you right now that you can call up and that you can access? And man, that kind of stuff never gets old.
She just made me. I gave an assignment. I was serving as an art teacher at an elementary school, and I gave the children an assignment to create themselves as a superhero. Draw a superhero of yourself. Come up with your own powers and make it happen. And they were stuck. I said, you cannot recreate any superhero that exists. And they were still trying to do Batman, Superman, Spider-Man. And when I got them away from, you know, what existed, they were really stuck. It was like Paper Man. He makes paper. It's glitter gal, and she just goes around and she throws glitter and it makes people happy. They did not know how to, and now we've got this movie where they will be able to see themselves as heroes and be able to build from there, and that's the importance, and it's on us to make sure that continues. Marvel did their piece. They presented the movie. We can't expect pink people to keep that momentum going. That's not their job or function or anything that they've ever done in the history of mankind. So it's our job to make sure that momentum is continued.
So James, is Black Panther the right film at the right time? Would the film have been a success if it came out? Would it have been this sort of frenzy for the movie if it came out 5 years ago?
I don't know. It's hard to say. I think now is the right time. There's a lot of momentum building up. Like, even if you think about, like, okay, Luke Cage dropped, that was last year, and we got Black Lightning. So it's like the only movies that are doing these crazy numbers are, like, you know, Marvel movies, superhero movies. So to take that and then just like have a predominantly black cast, black protagonists, I think it's definitely needed at this time. And yeah, it is the right time. That's why I'm kind of fearful, because I feel like people will, you know, put those lofty expectations on it. But again, it's like, you know, now is better than ever, and it's gonna just continue to build even more. Hopefully this will inspire others to, you know.
What are you laughing about?
You asked me, I said it's overdue. I think that, you know, 5 years ago, I'm thinking that Obama was president. I would have thought it would have been a good time because people were starting to see an African, you know, leading some nation. They could probably see a T'Challa, you know, through the eyes of an Obama. But even now, I think it's a better time because you have a Cheeto head in office who is running people out, and immigrants are feeling like they're powerless. And so this is a really good time. I just think that it's never a bad time to have an African character be a protagonist and a leader.
That's what I was saying. I was saying when he made those comments about Haiti and Africa, I said, you just added another $30 million to the box office, because a lot of people are going to say, oh yeah? Well, how can I get by? I'll show you.
Right.
I'm going to see Black Panther 5 times.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right.
And it'll be a meme about T'Challa doing something with him, or maybe around.
Oh, I'm sure there will.
And, you know,
Right.
like
I'm sure
Get
there
Out,
will be.
but yeah, so I just think this is it's the perfect film for the time, just because the times are so uncertain and so based in race. And, you know, it's such a, it's the, like, antidote to all of the nonsense that's happening in what's going on in our politics and in our reality. So this is like what they say, the people in times of oppression, they go to the movies and they deal with entertainment more so than ever. And this one, people might just be getting drunk at the box office off of this film, just so that they can go back to their reality and feel like, okay, now this is something of it's starting to balance it out just a tad. At least it's made me feel a little bit better about myself today, because that's all people are trying to do these days. It's just
I keep. Since one thing I do every weekend, like I was doing today, is following box office. There's been all kind of predictions about how the film will do opening weekend.
Sure.
I keep pushing it up, right? But here's the thing: no matter what it does, that money's still going to Disney and Marvel.
It's true.
It's not going to us.
Right.
It's going to Disney and Marvel,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, in a way, you're like, this is great, but it's still not in a way helping us.
But that's why I always take it back to independent filmmakers. Okay, now this is something you can see yourself in, because this is where you need to be going to get this money to come back to you for doing these type of roles and ideas. We got to take the ownership back on us after this. This is, I think, an opportunity for all of us to be inspired to do better in whatever it is we do. We deal with the media. I'm an artist. Like I say, some of us have been trying to create this Wakanda reality and walk in our lives every day anyway. But this should be just more inspiration for us to do it.
Well, I'm funny you bring that up, because I recently saw, believe me, there are independent black filmmakers all over the world. And I should know, I co-program the Black Harvest Film Festival every year. This year's the 24th year. And I've already seen a feature film shot here in Chicago that is, in its way, Afrofuturist. And also deals with African traditions, called Animator. Independently made movie, really well made, about this guy who gets this ability that's been transferred from African griots, that anything he draws becomes reality. And I said, and I would think even a movie like that, and it's a small independently made movie, which is really well done. They just finished post-production in December. And I said, maybe a movie like that probably wouldn't have been conceived 5 years ago. And it was done here in Chicago. Wasn't LA, wasn't London, wasn't New York, was done right here in Chicago, almost entirely shot here on the South Side. On real South Side locations.
Right. All right.
Some of them just literally blocks away from here.
Yeah.
So I said, yeah, maybe the time is right. Now it is. I don't know why. Maybe you're right. Why didn't it come out before? Were our minds right there yet? Or did what happened last November all of a sudden made people's minds sharper and said, hey, wait a minute, I've been living in a dream world.
But
this is reality.
Even technologically, it's better now. Because if it had come out 5 years ago, they might have done it like Spider-Man. You get
True.
remake because they need to try and get it right, and then you get another remake because they're trying to get it. They haven't got it right yet. So the cinematic technology is kind of catching up, where something like this can happen to show this advanced civilization properly. And I think that's a beautiful idea.
Mm-hmm. So, getting back to one of my earlier questions in another way. We have decided maybe, people will be there will be a few who said this is not living up to what I expected. But then again, the reality is that awful, be grateful. Because
They better not say it in public.
Yeah.
don't say it in public, right? But, okay, as I said before, as I started up with the beginning of the show, okay, fine. Now what comes afterwards? You're saying it's up to us to keep it going.
Absolutely.
As is with everything.
I got a
Right.
question, too.
Okay, but what?
So we've had Get Out. Okay, now
Yeah,
Get Out.
great movie.
That was that was our film.
Yeah.
Honestly,
Mhm.
I mean, Get Out's a great example of how that film say. So if this isn't great, that's fine. But at the next film, if we get our hands on it and do at least really get our hands on like Get Out was, it wasn't an awful lot of special effects involved.
But,
in Get Out.
but you know,
The impact.
but you see, you're going back to something I talk about, is that there's always been, every time there is a movie or that becomes a huge hit, there's always was a movie or movies became before that either flopped or people ignored. And I said, and I always tell people, well, if you like Get Out, did you go see Tales from the Hood?
Okay.
Which came out 20 years
Yeah.
ago. 20 years ago. Which dealt with many of the same things that Get Out dealt with. Right? And I bring that up, and people are like, well, that doesn't count. Yes, it does count. It's like Black Panther, he put down Meteor Man. Meteor Man is a child's movie. Okay? But it was written and directed by a black guy.
It was.
Who came up with this idea of a black guy who has superpowers. Yes, you look at it now, maybe, and by the way, this year is the 25th anniversary of Meteor Man.
Okay.
25th anniversary, right? And it's dated now in some of the music and things, and Bill Cosby's in it. Okay, but still, I look at that film and I said, if it wasn't for this movie, you wouldn't have that. If it wasn't for Blade, which came out 20 years ago this year, you wouldn't have that. And I've had arguments with people, Blade doesn't count. Yes, it does count.
It absolutely does.
It
And so,
really
and
counts.
Meteor Man does. I mean, Meteor Man was good. I liked it as a child.
As a
it was
child.
super corny.
Yeah.
But it was a good movie. But it was super corny. It was corny even as a child. Like this.
Okay.
And then didn't they do Blank Man right after that
Yeah.
or something like that? And that wasn't any better.
Right.
It's
No,
like
no,
we get the
no,
same
Black
type of
Man's worse.
goofy.
Black
Yeah,
Man's
yeah,
a
yeah.
whole lot worse.
Way worse. Way worse.
Whole lot worse.
Yeah,
Right.
but the GMO tomatoes, we got that out of there.
Right.
It's all a step up.
But it's a
But
step. Yeah, we
it's
just
always a step.
It's a step.
And there have been other black horror films that came out before Get Out. And when he did Get Out is like a variation of Stepford Wives. The original version.
Yeah.
Not the remake, the original version. And so what I'm trying to say is that I still don't think that a lot of movies, which was its precursor, don't get the credit. Black Panther is not new in terms of this idea of a black superhero. There's always been this idea of black superheroes. Now, somehow, because of the zeitgeist, it's caught on. And that's a question. This is what I was leaning to. When did Black Panther become such a big deal? Because the comic book's been out since '66.
But it was a big deal when it came out. It was a big deal immediately.
When
And
it came out?
when it
Because I
came
don't
out.
recall it back in the '70s.
I'm,
Well,
what,
by
what
that
I'm,
time,
what
I
I'm saying,
thought I had outgrown.
what I'm saying, it was a big deal when it came out. It was a big deal because it had not been done. I'm not saying the masses jumped on it. It was just a big deal that it had been done. So credit to Stan Lee and Jack Kirby for even envisioning that happening. It had not been done. A major black character in
African.
any universe, particularly because being African, and without that colonial imprint
Whole country.
on him,
Yeah.
that's a big deal from
huge
Jump
today.
Street.
See, I remember that Mantis.
Mantis, yeah.
The original TV movie was terrific. When they turned it into a series, they destroyed it. They absolutely destroyed it, and it was canceled. But the original TV movie, which was the pilot, was fantastic. I remember seeing it and said, wow, here's this black superhero, and he's got these powers and all this stuff. And like I said, but they blew it. But there's always been precedent for something like that. Maybe now, because I think particularly the times we live in now, and everything, things has always been racial. Now it's just open about it. Before it was under a lid. Now it's exploded.
Pandora's box is open.
Yeah, Pandora's box is open. Now, people are now looking for, what's the word I'm looking for? People are looking for some sort of reaffirmment of who they are.
You know what? One point also.
And by the way, we take questions from the audience too.
You made a point earlier
Yes.
about the fact that your students were they're at a loss for a superhero of their own kind. So when it came to them creating that, I think that one thing this film's going to do is allow us to have more. It builds up a little bit more kind of traction on us having our own specific superheroes that look like us, because I think it starts there. Like, I know exactly what you're saying. You ask the average person, not even a kid, make a superhero. And I'm going to make Batman, I'm going to make Superman, I'm going to make Flash.
Yeah.
But we can't come up with something that's specific to us.
Yeah, I mean, even in that universe, the latest black superheroes are remakes of formerly Caucasian, formerly pink superheroes. That's problematic because now we're following in there. We got to follow in their shoes in order to be great with the Green Lantern and Flash and Iron Man and who else has turned black in the last 10 years? Spider-Man. Yeah, it's all remakes. Black Panther was black from jump. Blade was black from jump. Meteor Man, and props to Robert Townsend on that, was black from jump. And that sends a more powerful message than the new black Spider-Man or the new black Iron Man.
Which
and
reminds me,
Black
there
Wonder
is that. Well, hold on. There is that. Was it Miles Morales?
Yes.
Miles Morales, yeah.
Animated film, which is coming out towards the end of the year. I think Christmas time. I think.
Yeah.
It's coming out towards the end of the year, right? I mean, already the trailer's out for it already. Perhaps let's see if there's going to be any kind of like build up for that, because I know once again, talking to friends, he's very, very popular. There's alternative universe Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Now the fact that they're disappointed because it's an animated film.
Right.
They said, gee, they didn't want to spend the money to make it a live action feature. But
They've ruined Spider-Man enough times to do it animated. Just do it animated. Let the live action go. They've ruined it, 4 times now.
all right. We got another question from the audience.
You mentioned earlier that this might start or reignite the discussion about what the heck Africa, kind of really is, and all these kinds of things that take place there, and all this type of thing. For those who for those who become interested, what resources, and I'm talking about either reading lists as far as books, I'm talking about as far as current online, places online, blogs, things like this, what type of resources would you all suggest for people who are actually interested in what it is that we kind of have been, history before slavery, because that actually exists.
What? What?
That's another fantasy movie.
Just in general, what the heck is going on over there now?
Well, over there it's so vast and expansive. There's so much. Each country is having its own
Renaissance.
Yeah, for sure. So, speaking like for my country, there's many books. It will be a book list. Because there's so many, and it will be, of course, from Chinua Achebe to even books that were not known by him. He has a book, There Was a Country, that talked about the African god Ogugu, who actually is part of my last name, and it's a god that people worshipped. And so it's you have all type of food and fuel for other character ideas and powers, and to come forward through just looking at actual history and culture that's alive today. You still have kings in Africa today. And my village, the king is still living amongst the people, and but it's not recognized by
Britain.
which is still imperially connected to Nigeria. So it's just having to find your own story so you can find yourself in it and really bring that back to life. And that's what it is. We lost ourselves by just being so enthralled in being in this first world, quote unquote, that's almost like a toilet country. So when you're in a first world country that makes you feel so much happier about yourself than who you really are, you lose yourself. So it's just us getting reacquainted with ourselves, and I think that's what part of this whole momentum is for those of us who have been lost and disconnected, is that they're starting to see themselves again. And like you were saying, Sergio, everybody wants to be part of the winning team, or who's hot on deck right now. And right now, it's just Africa is where it's at, and there's just so much fuel and just so much fertile ideas within the culture. So it's anything can go.
And it's our responsibility to get ahead of that and control the narrative.
Sure.
When they control the narrative, Shaft becomes Superfly. We have to control the narrative. And props to BrightSeed Collaborative. Part of that, I met a sister in Johannesburg from Holland that I connected with you all because of that very reason. Put these pieces together and increase the resources. Yatasha Womack is doing a lot of work making things available to in the Afrofuturism spectrum, making things available that youth and adults alike can connect to. We have to control the narrative, or it's going to flip. And so there's a lot of I don't know if there's a cohesive list of books and movies and technology, sciences, blah blah blah, but it might need to be. But we can put them out. Like I'm meeting with Black Bloggers United later on today. That's a group of black bloggers, duh, black bloggers that are really controlling the narrative, putting out news and entertainment and whatever else. We just have to get out in front of it and make use of one another's knowledge to increase what's available to those who may not have access to that knowledge. My first thought was Things Fall Apart. Like, I think all of us need to read that to understand exactly what's going on our everyday.
That I ever read about my country and was like, oh my God, this is all actually kind of cool. And wow, okay, someone's actually acknowledging that there is life outside of the United States in a way, that's important. But maybe that's something we need to do, a book list.
Book list, a film list,
Sure.
What else?
Supplemental resources of any kind,
Yeah. Who are great historians? Who are still Who is it that are still writing and researching the history, so on and so forth?
You think then the Black Panther would then start a new? It's not new. Let me rephrase that. That's the wrong word. Wrong word. A further increase in the interest in Afrofuturism.
Absolutely.
It's there. It's been there for decades. It's still, in retrospect, rather small. I mean, BET recently did something on Afrofuturism. They just discovered it. And of course, they did it in a mocking way.
Right.
Like, who are these weird, nerdy people? And they're black, But you think that this will start even a bigger discourse on Afrofuturism and more interest into it?
Definitely. And I mean, one thing that I wanted to mention as far as is the timing, right? We're in the age of information. So, you don't necessarily have to have a set template of books to kind of go back and do your history. Like, you can just pull out your phone and Google keyword searches. And there's more outlets than just BET, which is, what I'm saying, a little biased. And I would actually encourage people, if that's your only source of information on the black community, then hey, you gotta shift.
You have no source.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
If that's your only source, there's no
What
source.
the most people say, man, I haven't watched that in years.
Right. Yeah. So
It's still on? Right.
But if you're going to be watching and looking at internet, you have to make sure that they're credible sources that you're taking your information from, because everybody and their mama can do a video.
True.
Right. You put Black Beauty in on Google, you're gonna get a horse. You're gonna get a picture of a horse first. So you might have to dig a little deeper.
Right.
So anyway, we're just about believe it or not, we're almost at the end of this.
No!
Yes. Okay. Any final words from anybody?
Control the narrative. Control the narrative. Control the narrative. Get out there in front and control the narrative. Let this be a catalyst. It's not the end all be all, but let it be a catalyst, inspiration to greater things that we do within ourselves and amongst ourselves and for ourselves.
And be your own superhero. Like, what are you doing that is going to help your people, that's going to help you, that's going to help the environment? Like, how are you affecting this world that you're in as well? Don't just be a log in the clog in the wheel and just kind of moving around, but how are you adding or distracting from the actual reality and narrative that needs to be put out there? A positive, powerful nation of African people. I mean, what are you doing? What's in your wallet?
And James?
One of the things that inspired me to go into film was, having an elder tell me that my story was important. And although it seems like such a small thing, but no,
it's not.
That can open up a whole world and inspire you to do other things. So that's what I'm hoping to get out of this film. That's what I'm hoping that the young people, because I'm taking people every weekend to go see it. So everybody that I take to go see it, I'm hoping that they grasp that fact that your background, your lineage, all that is very important to sort of keep in the forefront.
Right. So I want to thank once again our guest, Ugochi, James, and Khari B. I want to thank again First Aid Comics for hosting us, and also Street Level, who is filming us today. and of course, BrightSeed Collaborative. I'm your host, Sergio Mims, and it won't be me, but we'll be back next week.